Hey everyone, today I'll be going over this testing with React testing library and Jest. So I'll see how much ever I can cover. I have an interview coming up, so I hope this is helpful. And yeah, I didn't really get the job description properly. They are expecting Angular as well as React. So let's see how it goes. But I need to make sure that I know testing. So yeah, let's get started without wasting any time.
Hello and welcome. My name is Stephen Greider, and I'm really excited to tell you everything I know about testing with React Testing Library and Jest. But before we dive into any technical content, I just want to give you a quick introduction and help you understand how you can get help inside this course if you get stuck at any point in time. So as we go throughout this course and we write tests, we write code, you might eventually see a error message or some issue that is just preventing you from progressing throughout the course. If that ever happens, there's a couple of ways you can get unstuck. First, you'll notice that many different lectures throughout this course have zip files attached to them. Inside these zip files are checkpoints, or pretty much all the code that is included for one particular video. So you can always download that code, check it out, and understand, make sure that your code is the exact same as mine. Second place to go if you ever get stuck is the QA discussion boards. You can find them really easily on inside of this. You can get some administrative stuff out of the way. Let's start to write out some code in the next video. Now that we've got some administrative stuff out of the way, let's dive into some technical content. So in this video, we're going to go through a very quick example of adding in a couple of tests to an existing React project. I've set up an existing project for us to work on. I've got a link to it on the screen right here. So I would encourage you to open up a new browser tab and navigate to this address.
Okay. So how should we do that? Let me type this out. Codesandbox.io, then S, then RDL, starter, SQ, 54B4. Okay, and let me also close this guy. Okay, got it. And let's see.
Once you get to this address, you'll see a page like this. On the right-hand side, there's a little preview window. So again, a very small React app. I set it up for us. We're going to write a couple of tests just to make sure this app works as expected. The application is really simple. Whenever you first load it up, you're going to see a collection of different products on the screen. And all these products are randomly generated. So we don't really know what color is going to be up top. We don't really know what the title is going to be or what the price of these products are. Once we show the first 6 products to the user can then click on the Load More button down here and load up an additional 6 products. They can then scroll down to the bottom, click on Load More again, and repeat the process as many times as they wish. So we're going to take a look at how we would test a very small application like this. Now, whenever you get into testing, I find a lot of people get a little bit intimidated. They say, well, what are we trying to test? What's our goal? How do we set up the tests? All that kind of stuff. For right now, we're going to keep things really simple and straightforward. I want to take a moment here to identify what the kind of core functionality is inside this application. And once we do that, we're going to write out a test or two just to make sure that the core functionality works as expected. So in this application, it's pretty simple and straightforward. The app starts up. We have 6 products visible on the screen. If we then click on the Load More button, we then get another 6 visible. So in total, 12. So we're going to write out 2 separate tests here. The first test is just going to make sure that when our application starts up, we see 6 products. We're then going to write out a second test and make sure that if we click on the Load More button, we then see 12 products visible on the screen. For right now, as we write out these 2 tests, we're not going to talk a lot about the code that we're actually writing. We're going to go over all the code line by line in the next video or 2. So let's get to it. Let's get started on writing out some tests. Back inside this editor, on the left-hand side, I'm going to find the src directory. And inside there, I'm going to make a file with a very special name. The name is going to be app.test.js. Once I have created that file, I'll make sure I have it open. And then we're going to add in a little bit of code at the top. First, I'm going to write out a couple of import statements. Again, we're going to go over all this code in just a moment, so for right now, we're just going to write it out. I'm going to add in an import for render, screen, and wait for. And these are going to be imported from @testing-library/React. Let me also increase the font size just a little bit to make sure that's super legible. I'll then add in an import for user from @testing-library user event. And then finally, I'm going to import the app component, which is located inside the app.js file. So import app from ./app. I'm then going to start to write out these two separate tests. I'm going to call a built-in function called test and provide it a first argument of a string. That's going to describe each of the tests we're going to write out. So the first test we're going to write out is going to have a very simple description, just say shows 6 products by default. Because that's our goal. That's what we're trying to make sure is working. As a second argument, I'm going to put in an arrow function, and I'm going to mark it as async. I'll then start to add in the second test. I'm going to give this one another very simple description and say, clicking on the button loads 6 more products. And then again, I'll put in an async arrow function. All right, time to implement the two tests. So on the first one, we're going to first start everything off by rendering the app component. So I'm going to call render and put in the app component. I'm then going to try to find 6 products on the screen. This is where things get a little bit interesting. For me in particular, I'm going to try to make sure that I see 6 H3 elements. Each of these product titles, they are H3 elements. So I'm going to try to make sure that I see 6 H3 elements on the screen. And that's going to be kind of proof that I have 6 products. Now, of course, by finding 6 H3 elements, we're not really making sure that we're also seeing, say, a price or the add to cart button or the tag or the image at the top. We're going to go into more detail on that again in just a little bit. So for right now, we're just going to make sure that we find 6 titles. So to find 6 titles, I'm going to write out const headings is await screen.find all by role, and then put in a string of heading. Notice there is no S on there. It's just a string of heading. I'm then going to make sure that I found 6 headings by writing out expect headings to have length 6. And that should be it for our first test. So now let's write out the second one. For the second test, I'm going to again render my app component. I'm then going to try to find that button element at the bottom of the screen, the one all the way down here. We need to simulate clicking on that button. So we're going to first find the button and then simulate a kind of click event on it. So we're going to write out const button is await screen dot find by role button, and then a second argument that's going to be an object. It's going to have a name property, and then we're going to put in /load more /I. Notice that these are forward slashes, they are not backslashes. I'll then simulate a click event on that button with await user.click button. Now after clicking on that button, it's going to take just a little bit of time to load up some additional products. So if I refresh the page over here, notice how when I click on the button, additional products are not instantly available on the screen. We have to wait just a little bit of time. So I'm going to take account for that by adding in a function call right after the user.click. We're going to add in await wait for, put in an arrow function that's also going to be marked as async. And then inside of here, I'm going to again try to find all the different headings that are available on the screen. And this time around, I want to make sure that there are 12 of them. So I'll say const headings is await screen find by, or find all by role with a string of heading. And then I will expect to find 6 headings, or excuse me, 12 this time, to have length 12. There we go. Okay, so that's it. We've now got our 2 tests put together. And I know there's a lot of mysterious code in here, and in particular, there's a lot of async await stuff. And believe it or not, that's actually going to be a huge focus inside this course. Last thing we're going to do is attempt to run these tests really quickly. So to run the tests and make sure that this little application works as we expect, on the preview window over here on the right-hand side, I'm going to find tests on the top right-hand, and then I'm going to click on the play button, or the tests should automatically run themselves. If you attempt to run the tests and see that they fail, or if nothing happens at all, I would encourage you to just refresh the entire page. Make sure you save your work first, but then go ahead and refresh the page. Code Sandbox, unfortunately, the testing apparatus here, it does fail somewhat frequently. So again, if any error comes up, just make sure you do a quick refresh. And if you're still getting an error after that, definitely double check your code and make sure you have the same thing as I. Once our tests run, we should see that 2 tests have successfully executed, and that means that, in theory, our application is working as we expect. Okay, so this is our first taste of testing. But of course, there's just a lot of things going on here that we really need to investigate. So let's come back in just a moment and go through all this code line by line. We have finished up our first set of tests. Now I want to focus on the actual code we wrote out and start to understand what is going on here. Now, just so you know, the entire rest of the course is dedicated to understanding the code inside of here. So this is really just our first taste of understanding this testing code. You don't have to memorize any of this. I really just want to give you an idea of what is going on. So to help you understand that code, I'm going to try to answer a couple of questions you might have around it. The first thing we're going to focus on is the import statements at the top. We wrote out 2 import statements for outside libraries, and they both look like we are importing very similar or identical libraries. So what are these libraries? What are they doing for us? When we go into the world of testing, we're going to very quickly see that there is a very wide variety of different libraries that we need to use. So I've got the first 2 right here that we actually imported, but behind the scenes, there are several other libraries that we are making use of inside this project, and we'll be making use of in future projects as well. So first, testing library/React. This is a library that is going to take one of our components and render it, get it ready to be tested. So you can think of it as being kind of vaguely similar in purpose to React DOM, but it does a couple of things on top of that we're going to dive into in a little bit. We also made use of user event. As the name kind of implies, this allows us to simulate user input. So things like typing or clicking or focusing an element and so on. Behind the scenes, we're making use of another library called testing library/DOM. This library is automatically included inside of our project by testing library/React. So you are already making use of this library, even though we don't really see an import statement for it. This library helps us find elements that are being rendered by our components. So we've already used this thing 3 times already inside of our existing tests. We used it 1 time right here to find all the different heading elements, 1 time right here to find all the different buttons, and 1 time right here to find all the different headings again. To run our tests, we're making use of a library called Jest. Jest is going to collect all of our different test files, execute them, run all the tests inside, and then report the results back to us. And then finally, we're also going to be making use of JSDOM. JSDOM is technically not being used by Code Sandbox, but it's going to be used very soon in all the future projects we work on. More on JSDOM in a little bit. Okay, so next up, how were our tests found? We created that test file, and we didn't actually appear to run any specific command or anything like that. We didn't import that test file. It just appeared that our tests magically were executed. So let's go into a little bit of detail on that. All right, so Jest, remember that's one of the libraries we just discussed, is in charge of collecting all the different test files inside of our project and executing them. Jest is going to find all the different files that satisfy one of these 3 different criteria, and it's going to assume that they are all files that contain tests. So it's going to find any file that ends with the name of spec.js, test.js, or is a plain JavaScript file placed inside of a folder called underscore underscore test underscore underscore. So notice there are two underscores on either side. Any file that meets one of these three criteria is going to be treated as a test file. Jest is going to automatically execute them and assume that they contain some tests. So that's how our app.test file was found and executed automatically. Okay, last step. What did our testing code actually do, line by line? We'll go over this really quick right now. Okay, so inside of our app.test.js file, we defined two different tests. We define a test by calling the built-in test function. The first argument is going to be a string that describes the purpose of our test, and the second is going to be a function that contains our actual testing code. In this case, we're going to focus on just the first test for right now and go over the body of that test line by line. So as you can guess, the first line of code is going to take our app component and render it. So we're going to produce some representation HTML. Our HTML is going to look kind of something like this. There are many other elements inside there. I'm just not including it in this diagram. So step one, just render the component. That's pretty much it. Step number two, we use the screen variable to find all the different elements that had a role of heading. And I'm going to give you a lot more information on what roles are and what the heading role is in a little bit. This line of code is really taking a look at our HTML and finding a set of elements inside of it. So in this case, we found all the different H3 elements. And then finally, the last line of code, receive that array of headings that we just found, the array of HTML elements, and it just made sure that we actually had 6 of them. If we had 0, if we had 5, if we had 7, or anything other than 6, this line of code would have thrown an error. Jest would have detected that error and told us that our test was failing for some reason. Okay, so that's it. Once again, you don't need to memorize this just yet, just kind of a high-level overview of the code we just wrote out. So now that we've got a little bit better idea of what's going on, let's get started on our next project in just a moment. In this course, we're going to first get started with our testing career by creating a very simple project with a Create React app.
Okay, so what I'll do is, I'll first of all get, I'll run this code and see if I can, make this run. So basically, what we have to do is, we have to first of all render the app. So we have renderer. So how do we use render? Is there anything given about this, or I need to look at the code? Okay, render is a method in which we have to pass an app. Okay, got it. So once our app is there, then we can run this code, and let's see if we are able to run this guy. Okay, I guess it's slow. Let's refresh it and see if it is able to. Okay, let's head over to the test. Running test suits. Okay, so one test passed, so we did it right. And then what we have to do next is, we have to define next test, and on click of load, or more 6 elements load. Okay, so async, well, again we have to render the app, awaiting find by role button. So yeah, here it gets interesting. I need to see how he got the button to begin with. Okay, so what he did was,
Available on the screen here and on that button.
okay, so he got the find by role button and then comma name. Okay, so find by role has more attributes. Okay, so it has name and he gave load more. All, not all, but just by role. And then it has options, control I or control K. It returns a promise, and let's see, uh, name load more comma I. So it gives out the heading, the button, and how do you click that button? Like user dot click. Okay, await user dot click. Okay, okay, got it. Await user dot click, and then await there was wait for. So wait for is a function which takes in a generic and a callback, uh, which returns a promise of a generic type. And there is also options object, wait for options. Okay, so as it's returning an a promise, so what we can do is await screen dot find all by role heading expect headings to have length 12. Okay, let's put const headings is equal to click. Okay, we did not click this button. So it's running our test suits. Let's see. I guess I have done it all right. It's taking a lot of time. One passed. Okay, both of them passed. So we were able to do that. So let's see. Await.
So We're going to add in a weight that's also
Wait.
going to be marked as async, different headings that are, say, here we go, there, weight stuff. And do is attempt to run these tests really quickly.
Okay, got it. Gotcha. And then, so what is he doing next?
And the second is going to be a function that contains our actual testing code. In this case, we're going to focus on, it's going to look kind
So we have done this.
if we had 0, if we had 5, just yet, just kind of a high what's going on. The goal of this first project is to just get you familiar with the testing process and help you understand some of the big challenges we run into. After that first project, I'm going to give you a starter project, so kind of a mostly complete project that I've already put together ahead of time. We're going to understand the project, we're going to write out some tests for it, we're then going to add in some new features to it and add in some additional tests. So for right now, just understanding some of the basics around testing, and then later on, not that far, it's going to be just a handful of videos, I'm going to give you this larger project with more complex features, and we're going to get into the real nuts and bolts of testing. So that's it, that's the plan. Let's get started on making a very simple project right away. So let me first begin by showing you a couple of mock-ups on what we're going to build. Now again, this is a very simple project. So at the very top of the screen, we're going to show a form where a user can enter in some information about a person. They can enter in a name and an email. Once they then click this submit button right here, we're going to take the name and the email and add it into a list of users or a table of users down here at the bottom. So we would expect to see a new row added into this table, and we should see the name and the email of that person. That's pretty much it. That's all we're doing for the first project. Again, the goal here is to just understand the basics of testing. Let's get started on this project right away by going over to our terminal and generating a new project using Create React App. So over at my terminal, I'm going to change into any old folder on my machine, any workspace directory is fine, and then I will generate my project with npx create react app, and I'm going to call this application simply users. All right, I'll let that run. It'll take just a moment to generate the project. So let's pause right here and come back together in just a moment. I've finished generating my new project. I'm going to change into the new project directory and then start up my React development server with a classic npm run start. As soon as I run that command, my browser should open up and I should see the classic React starter landing page.
Oh, sorry. My bad. So I'll just save this guy and then close this window, open up VS Code. But the thing is, why is my laptop getting slow? I'm not able to understand. Seriously. So, okay. Is there a diagnostics that I can run? But I don't need to diverge from what we are doing. So, yeah. Yeah, there is a React testing. Select folder. And what the hell? Open folder. I did not even click anywhere. Okay, so here what I want to do is close this, Control W, close everything, clear everything, and what I need to do is npx create react app. Jest testing or learn React testing. Okay, so once it's been created, we can start working on it. So meanwhile, can we see diagnostic? Okay, but if I see my C drive, there's not much going on. Oh, send 52 GB free of 255. What have I filled in here so much? Okay, I gotta check that because I don't think so there should be this much of memory needed, or else what might have happened is in here. Okay, so resume, Spring Boot, everything is there. I guess I have not this one. Okay, there is not a lot of stuff here, but what I would like to do is control Windows E and then go to D and put everything here. I'm still not sure what's filling up the memory, but yeah.
Right here. Very good. Now, in addition to starting up the development server, I'm also going to make sure I open up my code editor inside this project directory as well. I have already done so between the last video and this one, so make sure you open up your code editor inside of our new users project directory too. In this video, we're going to focus on just starting to build out the application. We're not going to worry about testing at all. Just to make this project really easy and straightforward to put together, I'm going to give you a design on the different components we're going to make. So let me show you exactly how we're going to make this thing. First, we're going to begin by creating two different components. One will be called user form, and that's going to display the form at the top of the screen. We will also make a user list, and as you guess, this is going to show the list or the table of users down here at the bottom. So we need to add in two components in addition to the usual app component that we're going to have as well. Inside of our app component, we're going to have a piece of state that keeps track of all the different users who have been added into our application. So it will start off as an array, and by default...
Okay, so can we create this? I guess we can. Not this guy. What we can do is we can go here. Okay, and we have all of this, then we have this, we have this. I'll do is get rid of this, and also everything that is here. Okay, let's keep this as is. um, okay, so we have this guy. What we need to create is a user form component, and user list component, right? List. So yeah, and it will have a state const user set set users, and what we need to do is use state. We'll use state and pass in an array with name John and email john@gmail.com. And what we'll do is we'll create another guy named Dewey. Okay, and name Dewey, and okay, and then we'll create another one, email dewey.@gmail.com. So once this is not very indented, yeah, once we have created this, then what we can do is that we can create the user forms, then user form.js, here RAF, so it's a React component, so we'll use this guy, and what we need to do is form, yeah, we need to have a form which will have two inputs. The hell, how did it go up there? It will have two inputs, type text and okay, let's put a label, and I guess for, is it HTML4 or how is it? ID name and then okay, let's put it this way, and we'll just copy this guy down and replace this name with email, and oops, email, and let's also call it email and type email. Okay, so once we have done this, then we also need to create a button and call this button submit. Can we define type equals to submit, and what we need to do is on submit we need to call a function and what we need to do is on change we have to change, like update the addresses. What's this? Export const. We don't even need to export this. Const user form equals to, and on submit, yeah, I'm coming to it. Handle submit we need to create, and we need to define const handle submit. But I guess I'm wasting my time doing this. Instead I should be focusing on handle change. Should be just purely focusing on, but this would be the last one that I'll be doing. Rest of it I'll just probably grab the code of it and start working on it directly, because all I need is just the knowledge of it. So handle change and handle change. So once I have handle change, yeah, so once I have handle change, that was me yawning, guys. Don't think something else. Okay, so once I have this handle change, what I need to do is I need to have a state for both of these items. State name set name and equals to use state, and it will be empty initially, and const name, email set email equals to use state, and quick fix is to import. Oh my god. Okay, so we need to import it on our own. So use state is taken care of. What we need to do is I guess in handle submit we don't need to really handle anything, but what we need to do is send a callback to the previous function. First we'll just take care of updating handle change. So if handle let's pass the event to this guy, event and a string name. So we can identify this guy as event. And I know this might be not the ideal way of doing stuff, but it is what coming to my mind right now. So yeah, we'll have event and we'll have input type, and what we can do is have a switch of input type. What is switch? Input type. Okay, so once you have the input type, I guess I'm writing it wrong. I think it should be written in this format. Yeah, case name. What we need to do here is to use state oh, okay, sorry, set name event dot target dot value, and case email, set email event dot target dot value. Okay, so we are doing this here, and then default break, and after this break hopefully this is right. Okay, and once we do handle submit, what we need to do is need to handle submit equals to, it will set users, it will call set users, or let's call update, or it will simply call users. Whatever users are passed, we'll use those users. So take the previous users and add the new user. Just one will come, right? Okay, so we need to do that. So in handle submit, what we gotta do is we are sending in a prop. So we'll destructure this and we'll send in a prop, and handle submit will return name. Okay, not an object with name and email. Okay, so we can just directly send an object with this type. Handle user will send, okay, a user, and then okay, got it, is not defined. So we just need to export this guy, export default user form. That should not get, Okay, quick fix is disable. No, quick fix is to import user form from React, or not from React, but from users form. And now all we have left is this guy. Once we save this, what we have to do is that we have to just run this program. We got a cd into learn react testing, clear this mess, and then npm start, so it will start our local server on port 3000. But okay, let's also do this. Let's create users list, and so that we'll know when it is getting, so users, let's call it users, and we are sending users, right? Okay, so users list, there are two errors, handle submit. Oh, yeah. So what we need to do is call handle submit and pass name and email. That's it. Now I'm making the user list. User list.js. Let's make that RFEC. Then export default user list so that our app can use it. So the only prop that we are sending is users. What we need to do is we need to map over users.map, so item index, so what we need is return return a span, let's call it a span, and let's give an item dot name and item dot email. Okay, and key is equal to item dot name plus index. Okay, so that will give us our key, and finally we got a break. Why is that? I guess we need to have a header element. That's why it's doing that. But yeah, it's fine. So we are mapping over the list. All we gotta do is just import it. So import user list from user list. That's it. So there will be no errors. So yeah, we were not using the logo. Now if you see, I just need to break the line between them. How should I do it so that it comes one after the other? I guess I can use a fragment here, and then I can introduce a BR. Yeah. So yeah, line break. So if I enter, let's say John Cena, and submit, oh, @gmail.com or mail.com. What? Oh, I did not do. Event. Event dot prevent default. The refresh we have to, and return this guy. So John Cena @gmail. So we did not get the refresh, but we did not get our email address back. So I guess I did not specify the on change event on this. Okay, I did specify the on change, but on something else. Okay, so that should do it. John, let me zoom in. John and Cena @gmail.com. Okay, yeah, we are getting that. So our app is ready. What we can do is, on initial load, let's try to do the testing ourselves. So on initial load, what we want is our app to have two input box. Let's do a simple testing. We'll render our app, and then screen dot get by text or find so this guy returns a promise. Find all by role returns a promise. So we need a async, and we need to await this because it returns a promise. So what we'll do is, I guess, input how did that guy find heading. Okay, heading is there, caption, cell, code block, column, definition, directory, form. manage insertion log menu. There should be an input box, right? Yeah, there is no input box. So what is the role of input? Or we can search find all by type. Isn't there a type? How to? So let's do our own searching. How to find input box using React testing library. Okay, I guess let's continue watching our video, so we'll get that.
Create
I
the
guess
user form and
we have created the user form and everything. We don't need to.
I'll give the button some text like add user. So I will find the user list.js, render a component, and then try to find an element. Query functions are how we are going to find elements that our component has too much. All right, so again, we're going to go into detail on what the screen and these. I'm going to put in text. First, I'm going to declare a variable called inputs. And this is going to be screen get all by role. And I'm going to put in text box.
Okay, so all we needed was get by role text box. Get by role text box, and let's I guess this is not async, then we can skip this, and there should be two text boxes if I'm not wrong. And see this and open this, and let's open up a new window, clear this up, cd into learn React testing, and what we can do is do npm run test. Have we specified anything in package JSON? Okay, yeah, so we have, so that should run some one test that we have defined in here, and it should pass or fail. Let's see, it failed. Saying what? So it found multiple role with text boxes. Okay, got it. Let's see.
I'll then put in button screen dot get by role button.
Was it, did I specify all or just by role? Okay, yeah, all. So I guess if I specify all, now it should at least run successfully. Okay, it again failed. To be in document is true. To have length 2, sorry. I guess this time it should pass. This time it should pass. Yes, it passed. Okay. So to have length 2. Let's call this to have to input elements, and also we'll check we'll check if there are two buttons, button the get by role button element. Let's copy this down. Button element to have length 1. So what what did we do earlier? Okay, to so to be okay, how do you check to have length 1? Let's see, to have length 1. Let's see if it passes or fails. Let's see. Yeah, it failed. Okay, so let's see what he is doing.
All right, so again, we're going to go into detail. First, let's finish up the test by writing out an assertion. So we should have found two different text inputs, and we should have found one button. So I'm going to write out some assertions to make sure that is the case. And again, we're going to go into a lot more detail on this. So I'm going to write out expect inputs to have length 2 and expect button to be in the document.
Okay, yeah.
You'll notice that these look a little bit
To be in the document. To be in the document, and it is true, considering true and false. Okay, let's see if it passes. It failed. Screen get by role button and const button element to be in the document.
it, but first run a test, running it, and make sure that it actually passes. So to run a test, we're going to open up run is project and make sure that I'm going to zoom out here so I can see everything.
Yeah, one failed.
And now if I scroll up a little bit, I'll see that it looks like one test is failing and one is passing. The test that is failing is the app test.js file. So remember when we first created our project, we automatically got one test file created for us. We'll eventually go tests inside two tech. Our first test is all done and passing, and now I want to go over some of the code inside of here and make.
But how? Like my test is not passing. Button get by role button in the input to have length 2. Okay, do I need to create new file user form dot test.js and copy everything from here and put everything in here and user form, let's call it user form, save this, passed. Okay, so both of them passed. Okay, I guess the component should be tested in itself. So we'll do this in the next stream. Do the next part in the next stream. Till then, thank you so much. Okay, bye. Next stream will be starting in like 15-20 minutes after I have